Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Racers Driving League, and it is that time of the season once again. Welcome to the Season 20 official team draw. I'm your host, Zach Ossie, here to bring you through all of the very brief action of choosing the teams for the brand new season. I am fortunate enough to be joined by our very own JB Racer 1. JB, owner of the league. It's a good time of the season, isn't it, to sort of get your team in and get more of an idea of which car you're going to be driving for the long campaign ahead. We're looking forward to the new season.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of unknowns, some knowns as well, some new drivers, some drivers returning. Still the same familiar faces at the front as well. So I think there's a lot to look forward to. Team draw, everyone looking forward to seeing what car they get. May not be what everyone wants. It is random ultimately. Some people may even find themselves in the same team. There's a 1 in 10 chance. I like personally to have a different team every season, just so it feels a bit different. But some people may prefer to, stick with their team and be loyal. But yeah, looking forward to seeing what team everyone gets.
Well, we have got 10 teams to go through in tonight's draw, and for those of you who are interested in the season as a whole, make sure you stick around towards the end and we'll reveal a special surprise in terms of a change for this new season, but we'll get into that later on. We've got 10 teams to draw first of all, and the first one on my list here will be Dan and Obsessed. So Dan obviously second place in the championship last season by quite a way to Grumio. Obsessed returning after almost a full season out. In terms of that first team being drawn, where will those two find themselves for the new campaign? As they slide back and forth to decide the team, it will be Mercedes. Dan and Obsessed piloting the Silver Arrow for this season of the Racers Driving League. Of course, changing teams for both cars. I don't believe either driver have driven the Mercedes before, at least in the last few seasons. Obsessed may have driven the Merc, I forget, but yeah, I mean, it's a strong lineup. I mean, Dan, obviously, as I said, JB, runner-up last season. Obsessed, obviously scoring points before he had to make his departure last season. I think this could be a lineup that does alright this season.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely, I think one of the top contending teams. It really depends. I know Dan has been he wants to work on managing just to get on to Grumio's level. I think that'll be difficult, but if he has the sort of willpower and if he can practice enough for each race, I think he definitely has a chance at contending. He won multiple races last season. And then Obsessed, of course, I've actually had to give up racing halfway through last season, but in his final race in Bahrain, he managed to get 6th place, which was his best ever result up to that point. So I think we have a lot to look forward to in that team. It really depends on whether they can be consistent across the whole season, because I think ultimately the top drivers, in this case Grumio, he is always the same every single race, and I think it's going to be hard to match that, but I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do.
Should be interesting indeed. High potential lineup there for this new season. In terms of my second lineup, there's 2 drivers who I think will be fighting to try and push themselves also closer to Grumio's level. That will be Imri and Cook. Again, one of the newer lineups for this season. In terms of which car they'll be piloting though, as we make our way again through the lineup of cars, it is the Kick Sauber, the Green Machine. As always, someone has to end up with this car, and it'll be Imri and Cook who carry that happy honour for this new season. I mean, I quite like the Kick Sauber. I don't see... I'm indifferent to that livery, but yeah, I mean, Imri and Cook as a lineup, JB, of course. HB Cook took his first victory last season in Vegas in the end. Imri obviously still fighting that winless streak, but has come close on many occasions. Of course, qualifying beast goes without saying. I think that if they have a good start, this would be a lineup that could try and challenge more for race victories this season.
I think so, yeah. I mean, that team, like you say, someone had to end up with it. I think it was a lot worse in 24 when had that horrible green diagonal thing down the side. It's also a lot better now. It's actually picked up some pace in real life. But in terms of the drivers, yeah, Imri, very, very quick in qualifying. Pretty much, the top driver when it comes to qualifying. Unfortunately, he always falls back a bit in the races, and I think he needs to work on that a little bit this season. But ultimately, he's much improved, I'd say, over the seasons before. And then, of course, Cook, did get that win in Las Vegas, and he was really sort of the driver who was bridging the gap between the top drivers and the midfield. A lot of really consistent point scores in towards the end of the season, so I think he'll be wanting to sort of get into that top group. on the edges of it. So hopefully he can manage that this season.
We'll have to wait and see. But again, another lineup with high potential to try and challenge. I'd say probably target a top 3 of the constructors, but that could be a quite tight race this season. But moving on to our next team, though, will be the ever-present Ethan and PJ, who once again find themselves as teammates. In terms of the car that we're piloting this time around, they will be piloting the blue and pink BWT Alpine Machine. I think one of the nicer liveries on the grid, a lot better than their carbon fibre monster of last season, but hopefully they can perform a bit better than Gasly, Colapinto and Duanav over the course of this real life F1 season. But again, Ethan and PJ, obviously almost always teammates, very consistent pairing. You can always rely on them to run together. Aston Martin last campaign, it was P8 in the constructors for them. I think we'll be looking for better this time around.
Yeah, I think PJ struggled a bit at the start of last season because I think generally control users, and I found it myself, were at a bit more of a disadvantage than the last game. But these guys they're always very close on track, Ethan and PJ, and I think that really helps when you have a teammate who you can push against, who you know is on a similar level. So I'm hoping those guys can score a few more points. I know that PJ said he's going to try and carry that momentum that he got. I mean, he got 3 P5 finishes towards the end of last season. Really, I mean, he ended up, I think, 11th in the end in the drivers. So, yeah, I'm hoping to see those guys in the points again as regularly as they were at the end of last season.
Just have to wait and see on that front. And on now to our next line, which will be the returning Websy and DJ. Of course, Websy, one of the ever presents in the RDL. DJ joined us last season, but obviously made a bit of a splash in terms of a debut sort of half campaign. In terms of the car they'll be driving this season, they will be taking the honour of driving the mighty Green Machine itself, or the other British racing Green Machine, the Aston Martin, going Websy and DJ's way for this season. I think again this is the lineup that will likely be in the I should imagine top half of the standings. But P6 for those guys last season, they were quite a ways off of Red Bull and Mercedes. But with me, I don't know. I think with a full season under their belts, they could really challenge in the top 5. I should think.
Yeah, I think obviously DJ was a late arrival and still learning a lot about the league, learning about the drivers he's racing against. Websy, complete opposite, been a second longest driver other than myself. So I think that's a really interesting combo. It will be interesting to see because Websy again had a bit of a rough start. He did get a number of penalty points last season. I'm sure he'll be wanting to put that behind him. And again, he really did towards the end of last season. He got some really good solid point scores. Again, another driver I think struggling a bit more on this game than the last game. But I'm hoping those guys, they can manage to get back up there because I think that team definitely has the pace, at least, to be up there in that sort of top 3 in the standings.
Should be hopefully a good season for those guys. I'm seeing off topic. I'm just seeing Imri and HP Cook registering their appreciation for the having the Sauber. Obviously, HP Cook back in the Sauber for this season, so I'm sure. Well, let me say that it's a race-winning car for him, so I don't think you can complain too much. But we'll carry on as we are, and we'll move on now to our next lineup, which will be AT and the reigning drivers' champion, reigning 10-time champion Salve Grumio, who again finds himself looking at a title defence. In terms of the car that he will be driving alongside AT, this is a bit of a change here. He'll be making I imagine it's a welcome return to the reigning Constructors Champions MoneyGram Haas F1 team. So Grumio again back in the Haas. And JB, I'm wondering exactly how varied these draws are, because this is the second time in 3 seasons that Grumio has wound up in the Haas, and I feel like it goes through a loop of sort of Haas Williams RB. Let's call it that sort of loop. So I think Grumio's team's getting a bit stale, I'd imagine.
Well, at least it was different to last season. No, you're right. It is quite rare that someone has that team so many times, but it seems to be the way the racing gods are going to draw it. For Haas, though, it's good. They're holding on. Well, they're holding on to a top driver, not in the sense that it's either Che or Dan, but it's a top driver still. Grumio definitely the driver to beat, I'd say, the favourite still. But there were times towards the end of last season where he was only getting 4th or 5th, so we'll have to see. And then, of course, AT, he was in that top group. Similar to Imri, I'd say. he had the pace for podiums, but not quite wins. So he'll probably be wanting to aim for a first win in quite a number of years since his return. So yeah, that'll be really good to see what those guys can do together.
Should be good, and possibly one of the favourites for the Constructors' Championship if things all run to plan for those guys. But obviously halfway through the lineups, and we have got 5 more to go. Next up will be our very own JB, who is obviously here with us in the stream, and we've also got his teammate 10th this season, and 10th has taken what I said in Discord a bit too literally earlier, and has actually sent a £5 donation, hopefully for a better team. So thank you, 10th, for doing that. You didn't need to do that, but thank you regardless. But JB, in terms of the car that you and 10th will be piloting this season, you will be piloting the Visa Cash App RB. Personally, my favourite livery on the grid, I think, in terms of this year. It's just it's so nice compared to what AlphaTauri / RB have done in the past. But I mean, in terms of that team for you, what are you thinking of that car? Have you driven it much?
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. I know me and 10th are we're pretty similar on pace, and we're gonna try and push each other as much as we can to get back up in the standings. RB obviously, or Racing Bulls as they're called now, only got last place in the constructors, so really we'll be pushing for that sort of 6th, 7th. And we know we don't have the pace of the front runners, so we're not going to kid ourselves. But yeah, we're going to do our best. And 10th obviously mixed season, I'd say, and she was very fast in some races. So we're just going to, and the issue for me as well is consistency. So if we can get the consistency right, I think we'll do quite well.
Should be fun to watch. And moving on now to our next lineup, being Curtis and TJ. TJ, of course, making his return to the league as a full-time driver. In terms of the car they'll be piloting this season, as we once again scroll through the 10 teams, that will be the other, the sister team. That will be the Oracle Red Bull Racing car. So obviously P5 in the championship last season with Imri, 10th, and Matthew as a collective. But I should imagine we'll see both these two drivers remaining in the car for the entirety of the season, and we'll see if they can also try and push for a top 5 finish in the constructors. Of course, TJ was performing quite well in his reserve runs. He was looking at sort of routine point scoring places, but we'll have to see if he's got what it takes over the course of a full campaign.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, TJ in the last race in Silverstone managing to get 5th place, so, and it was similar results, I think, ever since he started reserving. So it's really good to see. And Curtis, unfortunately, last season he had a number of issues with his wheel and just a lot of bad luck, I'd say. So I think hopefully now those are out the way, they'll both manage to get some good results in. And I think TJ is someone who will probably fit into that AT maybe Cook group, and that's what we've seen so far. So yeah, I think we got a lot to look forward to from those two.
That'll make this, I think, upper midfield a bit more competitive over the course of the campaign. Right, 3 more to go. My next lineup on my list here is Alvar and Ericsson, which will be an interesting lineup to see over the course of the campaign. In terms of the team they'll be driving for this season, they will be taking on the role of driving the winning Constructors' Championship car from the Real Life Formula 1 season. That'll be McLaren. So they take on the Papaya car from Woking. I mean, between them, it wasn't a fantastic season. I mean, 34 points between Alvar and Ericsson in the last campaign. So I think they'll be hoping for better this time around. I think they're more than capable of doing that, of being better this time around.
Yeah, I think the issue they have is that the midfield is so packed, and they're in that group. And I think Ericsson had a lot of bad luck. I think there were multiple races where he was involved in collisions, no fault of his own. But like I've always said, though, luck comes around, it goes around, and there'll be people who have had a lot of luck this season who don't find themselves in that situation this season. So I think the point of league racing in that sense is to realise that actually eventually your luck will turn around, and I'm hoping he'll manage to really go for it. And then Alvar, of course, not the easiest season, but it's an all-Swedish duo, by the way, which I think is great. But I think those two can really go for it this season.
McLaren goes Swedish, as Dan just put it in the chat, which I think is quite a cool way of putting things. Right, and 2 more lineups to go, and this next lineup, JB, is one that's obviously quite interesting because it's the only lineup where both the drivers in said lineup won races last season. We're looking at Che and Pope for the coming season. Again, one of the favourites for the constructors. In terms of the car that we're piloting, obviously only two more left to choose, and that car will be the Williams. Of course, runner-up last season in the constructors with Grumio and yourself. So JB obviously waving goodbye to your old machine. Again, quite a nice livery, and I think honestly, I mean, Che won the constructors with Dan last season. I say there's every chance that he goes back to back in terms of constructors titles, and maybe even with enough pace in it, a run for the drivers title as well.
For me, this really, in terms of the constructors, it really depends on Grumio, because last season he was so dominant, and unfortunately, even for example with Landlord and AT, even though they did really well, I mean you saw it because I was in the team with Grumio. He just scored so many more points than everyone else. I think if Che and Pope, because I think combined they are the strongest duo, I think they can win this, but they really have to stay motivated. And I know that's not always easy on this game, but I think I'm going to say that I think those two can win this, and are my pick. So yeah, both race winners last season. Took a while for Che. Pope got the win very early in Saudi. Bit of a false dawn, shall we say, but I think both of those, if they put the effort in, I think they can both do it.
It'd be interesting to see whether those two can keep up with the Grumio over the course of the campaign. I'd say arguably, aside from Dan, obviously, I'd say these two are probably Grumio's closest challengers. Of course, they were fighting for third place in the Drivers' Championship at the end of last season in the race at Silverstone, which obviously Che won out despite Pope winning the race. But obviously, that leaves us one more lineup left, and that being Cottony Goblin and our debutant Rydog taking part in this season, and they've been left with the famous old prancing horse, the Scuderia Ferrari, which finished 9th in the constructors last season. Obviously, Cottony unfortunately went scoreless over the course of the campaign. Rydog, we haven't seen him drive a reserve race yet. Sometimes we get a sense of how quick a driver is compared to the rest of the field if they've done a reserve race or two. But Rydog is a complete unknown, so I'll be excited to see exactly how much pace those two have them in them as a collective.
Yeah, I think Cottony, I do feel sorry for him because he attended every single race except Australia, the first race, and he went 23 races and he finished all of them, but no points. So, I got to take my hat off to his dedication, because it's not easy just to turn up and not score anything. And I really respect that about him. That's, he has that tenacity. That's why he's been here for over 300 races. Rydog, obviously, like you say, completely new. Did quite well in the testing to get into the league. I think he's at least midfield, maybe higher. It really depends, because, like I say, it's just so tight now, and it will be really dependent on whether people can get to grips with their cars. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
Right, so that is all 10 lineups declared. So with that, we'll run through them one more time just briefly. So Dan Obsessed will drive the Mercedes, Imri and Cook pilot the Kick Sauber together, Ethan and PJ in the Alpine, Websy and DJ in the Aston Martin, Grumio and AT will take over the Haas, JB and 10th in the RB, Curtis and TJ in the sister Red Bull, Alvar and Ericsson in the McLaren, Che and Pope in the Williams, and finally Cottony and Rydog in the Ferraris. Those are your 10 teams, and with that in mind then, we have got one last thing to announce going into this new campaign. JB, if you would be so kind as to tell us what the surprise is.
Yeah, probably not as exciting as you've made it out to be, but
Sorry.
Obviously the calendar hasn't actually been revealed yet. It's a full calendar, which is the norm. But there are a few little tweaks for this season. So, whereas last season we had Silverstone as the reverse grid finale in the reverse direction, this season it will be Austria, the reverse layout. So that's going to be interesting, especially that horrible tight left-hander as you just come down the hill there. So just to make things interesting, because we may as well use these reverse tracks while we have them. I don't know how long they'll be in the games. And then the other thing, obviously, we do every 4 races 100%. This season, we're going to be starting in round 1 with 100%, and then every 4th race after that. So that will be Australia, Saudi, Spain, Hungary, Singapore, and I think the other one is COTA. So, yeah, just to mix things up, because otherwise we probably would have had the same. I think we would have had the same 6 tracks as the 100%. So, I wanted to make it a bit more interesting. And obviously, those tracks will be marked in the calendar for those who can't add 1 to 4 and 8. Yeah, that will be posted in the Stewards Report, the full calendar, and the spreadsheet link will also be going out very soon.
One thing I did want to ask you about, JB, before we wrap things up. Obviously, we got the news last week, so more or less the day after the season came to an end. We're going to be on this game for a bit longer than anticipated. Obviously, we're getting a DLC for 2026. So, is there anything in mind in the future, perhaps to sort of spice things up for future campaigns, given that we're going to be on this game for a little bit, or is that something that's to be thought about later on?
I think we'll reserve that for now, but always open to suggestions. Obviously, it's interesting news that we're going to be staying on this game. Some people like it, some people don't. I think at least we know that we'll be racing for a good few more seasons yet. And I think with the new teams and the new Cadillac team and 22 car grids are going to be fun. So I think there's a lot to look forward to, and the aerodynamics, the movable aero, and the new Madrid track. So there's a lot still extra, and to be honest, I think when not much changes between the games, I think not paying full price isn't really a bad thing. So, but yeah, in terms of calendar, very early, but again, if people want a random order or a reverse order or something like that, always open to suggestions, and we can always have a vote on it.
Should be interesting going forward. Well, that will do it then in terms of our coverage of the RDL Season 20 team draw. We actually made quite good time, to be fair. About 25 minutes overall, JB, so we've done all right, you and me.
Yes. Sorry, I just wanted to say, for those who didn't catch it, we have pre-season testing immediately after this. I'll be setting it up straight after, so we'll probably aim for about 1:45 at Bahrain. Turn up if you want to, is optional. Most people do turn up, so it's probably suggested that you do. Yeah, it'll be Bahrain pre-season testing.
Sounds good. Obviously, the first race will be taking place next week on the 1st of December. 100% Grand Prix to keep an eye out for, so it should be a fantastic scrap around the streets of Melbourne. But that is all we have time for. Thank you guys so much for joining us. And make sure, of course, to like, share, and subscribe for more future audio content for the season ahead. Thank you very much, JB, for joining me. Thank you all for watching, and we will see you all in the first race. Goodbye.